All right, day 2 of camp. Great seeing the energy from our guys. I think we got a lot of buy-in. We got some young guys with some talent, creating competition. And tell you what, going against Coach Moorhead's offense and the skill we have on offense really helps prepare ourselves. So with that, what do you guys got?
In the spring game, Tim, you got to see Dante Manning and Bennett Williams quite a bit with the ones. You're doing it again now. Mm-hmm. And how do you evaluate them and the roles that they've had lately, and also for Jalen and Jeffrey, who were early enrollees, worked with the twos, still getting to do so? What have you just seen from that 4 guys?
Yeah, those 4 guys in the first 2 days have really done a nice job. They've had opportunities to make some plays, and they've made them. It's fun to see Dante really jump in, get more reps so that you can see the explosiveness out of his cuts. Jeff Bossa had a chance to have his hands on a ball yesterday. Bennett Williams really understands and starting to play fast now. I think he's starting to play with more confidence. Jalen's, he's starting to figure it out a little bit more. When you first come in as a freshman, it all comes at you fast, but all those guys got to step up for us, because in football, you never know who's got to be called up.
Really athletic guys on this defense. Coach Cristobal talking about the value of versatility. With you being a DC, how do you kind of approach that or value that in your defense?
Well, it starts with guys that can run. When we talk to our guys, we want to match up personnel-wise with our opponent. And when you have guys that can run, you can job swap. We can have outside linebackers that drop into coverage or pressure. We have defensive linemen that can drop into coverage. We got safeties who can blitz. All that job swapping stuff can make it difficult on an offense. And what you got to do is make it simple enough where our guys are playing fast. Because as a defense coordinator, you can also give them so much that they slow down because they're thinking. And obviously, we don't want to get to that point. And I think that our guys right now are a pretty comfortable position. At least our starters and our twos, the guys that were here in the spring, they're moving around pretty fast. Now, they're nowhere close to being near efficient as what we need to be. But I like the speed that we're playing with right now.
Coach, when you're preparing for an offense, how much easier, or is it easier to prepare for a team that exclusively runs a spread versus one who runs a spread, has a quarterback under center in different formations?
Well, I think anytime you can go good against good and see as many multiple things, it helps you as a defense, so that you don't have to card things with guys that don't do it naturally. We're seeing everything from our offense right now. Yes, we're a spread team, but we're seeing a significant amount of 12 personnel, downhill runs, play action passes. About the only thing we're not seeing is double slot, triple option like you may see at a service academy, but we're getting triple option out of his RPO games and some of the running quarterback plays.
The program has obviously recruited very well at inside linebacker with Justin Flo and a list of other guys. How do you see that kind of battle with Isaac leaving?
Well, I think, that Ken Wilson's been phenomenal in developing his room, recruiting to his room, and we've got a bunch of guys in there competing. So, game of football, it's always next man up. You never know when it's going to happen, so we got to continue to develop guys so that when we do have an injury or someone's out for whatever reason, the next guy's got to be able to play. And I like our depth there. It creates competition. And then, like I said, getting a chance to compete against our offense really pushes and stresses our guys. So we'll see right away whether they can do it or not.
Going along those lines, Justin Flo, you saw what he could do in the spring. Has he made a leap even more so this fall from what you've seen so far?
Well, I think he's playing with more confidence. During the spring, he only went maybe the last 5 or 6 practices because we had a regulator on him because of the injury. And so you've seen him at times in our practice already, and we're just in helmets right now. The explosiveness that he exudes, the fact that he can really break on balls, and when he gets there, ear pads and balls tend to splatter and go in different directions. It's fun to watch him and Noah because they both have that explosive ability.
Speaking of Noah, he's been pretty noticeably vocal. I know you can't speak to last year, but as a staff, has there been a request to him to try to assert himself as a vocal leader, or is that just natural maturity?
I think it's part of just growing up and maturing. You come in here as a true freshman, there's a lot of talent around here. You kind of have to find your niche, and I think at the inside linebacker position, it's natural for that guy to assume that position. And I think as he makes more plays, guys look to him as being the leader. So, the one thing we've challenged him to do is to play hard, and he does that all the time. So he sets a standard for himself that is a pretty high standard for everybody else to try to reach.
How similar are the responsibilities for the outside position Kayvon's played compared to Mace?
We have those guys where they can be interchangeable. Again, we talk to these guys all the time about job swapping. While they have different skill sets, I think, when we go in our 4-down stuff and they're edge rushing, both of them do a really nice job in the run game. It's hard to compare anybody in the country to Kayvon as far as a speed rusher. But both those guys could line up on either side, and we'll do that some. We'll match them up against, the matchups we want. When we get into our odd stuff, we can have either one of them playing to the field and being more of a Sam backer, and the other one being, our joker, where he may be in the rush, maybe in the drop. Both those guys will be kind of interchangeable as we go through camp, so that, and not just those two guys, all of our outside backers, so we find out who are our best edge guys, and when we have to get a next man up situation, we can get the next best guy on the field.
Now that you've been around KT for a while, what's the next step for his evolution of his game? Like, what are you trying to push him towards?
Well, I think there's always little things that he can get better at. His hand placement on run blocks, getting to where he's getting off up the field all the time and not trying to diagnose plays. And then once he gets, engaged, we got to get him separating and using his hands a little bit better. And the thing I love about KT, he's always looking, hey, how can I get that next edge? How can I get better? Really intelligent ball player who's never satisfied.
He did a lot of individual work this offseason in terms of working with Chuck, doing some online stuff with Von. Had you had guys previously work with Chuck? I mean, he's worked with a renowned list, but have you personally had guys work with Chuck?
I personally have not, but I know the work that he's done, the guys he's worked with, all those things. Again, it really speaks well to KT. There's all these accolades thrown at him. Some guys, it's like, taking poison and, they just drink it up. KT's like, that just drives him to get even better. And how can I get better? What resources are out there to get me better?
Looking at the
Media
secondary,
Day, he mentioned the importance of, if he was coaching against himself, he'd double him every time because he was confident in the other guys. What are your thoughts on just the other group of guys that are going to maybe have those opportunities with the attention that he's going to grab? Well,
the great thing about camp and with what we do with our offensive line is we're going to go every single day, probably as good a competition as we're going to see on Saturdays, or better most Saturdays. So we'll get a chance to develop our other guys, see what they can do, and I'm really looking forward to this camp because we've got a bunch of older guys coming back. We've got some young guys that are fresh legs and doing some exciting things. So we will have a plan. If teams want to double KT, we'll do a couple things. We'll try to put them in some formations where they won't be able to do that, and then if they're determined to do that, we'll have guys on the other side that'll win their one-on-ones.
Are the days with him putting his hand in the dirt, is that done? Is he standing for good?
No, we're gonna mix it up. When we get into pass rush situations, I think he likes rushing from a 2-point, but if he wants to rush from a 3-point, we'll let him do that too.
What have you
looking
seen?
at the secondary, I think one of the players that is interesting to look at is Triquez Bridges. I believe he came in as a safety. He's a longer defensive back. What have you seen from him as he looks to take that next step in his development at corner?
Yeah, I thought he did a really nice job in the springtime. He is a longer type body. We don't have a lot of those at the corner position. So when teams want to match up with a 6'3", 6'5" receiver, he's a guy that can match up physically. So you like that. I thought his confidence and his ability to close really improved in the spring. Now we're only 2 days in, but I like where he's at mentally, and I expect him to keep making strides. Because again, you look at the 4- and 5-star kids he's got to compete against every day. He's either gonna push and get better or drown. He's that kid that gets thrown in the deep end every day, and I love it because it's pushing him to be a better player.
What have you seen from the guys behind Popo at that nose to 2-eye kind of rotation? Even go back to the spring because they were all here, but whether it be Suava, Jason, Christian, Keanu, just what have you seen from that group of guys?
Well, we got to compete every day. A couple guys that stood out, I thought, with Jason at the end of spring started to come on. I mean, he's got a big body, and he's the guy that we want to hopefully continue his maturation and be able to take some reps off Popo. But Suava has really made strides too. He's done a nice job of transforming his body, getting a little thicker. Still is a really explosive player. In the last couple of days in pass rush has really shown up.